Hey everyone, it's Jim
And Charles
from Valves and More, an online vintage tube store. And today in Tube Lab number 232, we're going to talk about a new tube discovery. Yep, it's the 12R-HH14 tube.
That's a mouthful.
And it's a terrible name because I can't remember it. But maybe after Charles gives you the history of this tube, you will want to remember it. But first, caution everyone, electronics and tube amplifiers can have very high voltages present, which can be lethal. Exercise extreme caution when working around them. Always consult a professional technician when in doubt. Well, if you are a tube fan, and who isn't, just the name Western Electric will probably get your attention. And if it's mentioned along with the 300B, your heart might start a-pounding. Western Electric was one of those small early electronics manufacturing companies that predated the invention of the telephone. But when Alexander Graham Bell needed a manufacturing arm for his new telephone company, it made sense to simply buy an existing company already making electronics. And in 1881, after the Bell Group acquired Western Electric, a long and glorious era of research, development, and modern manufacturing commenced. What does all this have to do with today's tube? Well, Charles is going to tell you.
Okay, so obviously these aren't labeled as Western Electric. We're going to get to that in a little bit here. But Western Electric was known as one of the great vintage tube manufacturers, especially for the 300B. The 300Bs that they made are sought after by practically everybody. But they did make some other very interesting tubes. So let's bring this data sheet in here and take a quick look at one of them. This is the Western Electric 420A. And what the 420A is sort of their own version of the 5751, which on its own is a close equivalent of the 12AX7. Slightly lower gain, but designed to have way lower noise and microphonics. Let's go down to the bottom of the sheet here. And we can see here that it's been designed to have, sorry, it's hard to read this upside down.
I can read it. This tube has been designed for use in DC amplifier circuits where
the requirements include a high order of mechanical and thermionic stability, as well as a long life expectancy.
Yeah, those are all words that we like. In fact, tube lovers love hearing long life expectancy because, of course, tubes have a finite lifespan.
And down here, we can see who this data sheet was made for. American Telephone and Telegraph. So AT&T, 1962.
Yeah, and AT&T was the direct successor of Alexander Graham Bell's original company.
Mm-hmm. So Western Electric made the 420A, and it is actually usable in a lot of 12AX7 circuits, but with an adapter because it has a slightly different pinout on it, which can be pretty annoying with these specialty tubes.
And it's also, like most Western Electric or WE tubes, they are fairly rare. They were mostly manufactured for Bell systems, and as a result they really weren't made in the kind of numbers that commercial tubes were made in.
More of an industrial purpose or business use tube. They also made a version of it called the CK5755 specifically for Raytheon as well, and otherwise it was identical. The Raytheon datasheet actually says that they mounted the cathodes on springs, which is really interesting to help it with the microphonics.
How big would a tube be to have springs?
Oh, it's pretty tiny. I mean, it's this size right here. So where does NEC come into things? Well, back in the late 1800s?
Yeah, 1899 to be exact.
Yep. Western Electric actually went over to Japan and helped NEC become established. They were one of the principal investors. They helped them essentially purchase and tool up their very first factories. They were trying to corner the market in Japan, China, and Korea on these newfangled things called telephones that were being set up everywhere.
And what is NEC? What is its proper name?
Nippon Electric Company, and Nippon is just a formal way of saying
Japan.
Yep. So essentially, NEC became sort of the Japanese or the Asian arm of Western Electric, and that continued right up until the Second World War, whenever the Western Electric's share of the company was confiscated by the government and the factories were put under military control. But that changed after the war. These guys are essentially the NEC version of the 420A or the 5755.
With a different pinout.
With a different pinout. And that is what makes them really great, is because these have the standard pinout that's used for 12AX7s, 12AU7s, 12AT7s, and that means you can plug them in without an adapter. So these are drop-in replacements for 12AX7s, as long as you don't mind the lower gain, and as long as you're not using them in a circuit that has a frequency filtering that requires the
Plate resistance.
the plate resistance of the tube to be completely identical.
So, for example, many passive phono preamp RIAA EQ circuits, they all require that the resistance of the tube match the original design specifications. So you can't, in any of these phono preamps, including our own modern line kit phono preamp, you can't substitute a tube. You can substitute tubes,
But it's going to affect the EQ.
You have to stay within the family.
And take a look at the label on this guy. This is one of the two versions that we have. This one actually has an extra mica on the top, and these are rarer than the standard one that we were just looking at. But look at the font that they used on Nippon Electric, if you can see that on camera. Doesn't that look awfully like Western Electric? They use the same font.
Well, I think Western Electric's share of NEC or Nippon was 49%.
No, it started at 55%.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So they were actually a majority shareholder.
Right.
And they have these really unique, interesting looking box tubes with the single wing coming off the side here. And
now the interesting thing about slightly lower gain for a high gain too, I mean, a mu of 70 or gain of 70 is
still quite high.
It's still quite high. And when you drop the gain a little bit on a tube, in most cases, the circuit will work fine and the noise floor will go down.
Yeah.
The lower the gain, the lower the noise floor. And so long as you're not pushing whatever your circuit is to the very limit, and most people don't, most people that are designing for a high gain tube are only using a small fraction, or not a small fraction, a portion of the available gain. So a good example of this is typically a 12AX7 circuit will be set for a gain of roughly 70. But if you're designing a circuit for a tube with a gain of 70, like we did with the kit phono preamp and the 6SL7, we actually pushed the gain as hard as we could.
Yeah, we wanted as much swing as possible and as much gain as possible on that. So here are some lovely boxes, original boxes for them here. And yeah, why don't we go and have a listen to these, and you guys can be the judge of how good they sound.
I felt you move somewhere beside me. I searched around but couldn't find you. will be in your garden under the magnolia tree. This night has a magical touch, something to be unsaid, something to last forever. In your wild, wild garden, I will be in your garden under the magnolia tree.
Well, that's one of my favorite test tracks.
Yeah,
It's got a lot of detail.
great vocals.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just a good test track to put a tube through its paces.
And show it off a little bit.
Yeah.
So we actually managed to find enough of these interesting 12R-HH14s to make up some matched pairs, and we've got them in the store under the 12AX7 section. We have only one pair of these triple mica versions. They're really rare, but we have a few more of the single micas.
In fact, the tube in general is not the Western Electric version, the Raytheon version, and the NEC version. They're not commonly available tubes.
No, we were hoping to find more of them before we talked about them here, but it's this is, months of searching have gotten us what we have now.
Yeah. Okay. And what do we have on sale this coming week, Charles?
Well, let's clear the deck and we'll be right back.
Well, this week we're going to feature a modern 6AS7. That's the 6080. And one of the reasons why we're featuring it is because the development work on the new kit headphone power amp is well underway. And right now, Charles is working on the PCBs. And we're taking test builders. We're already up to test builder number 6. So we'll be full fairly soon. And
the amplifier takes a pair of these, but it's not the only one that does. There's a couple of Woo audio amplifiers out there. Of course, the Bottlehead Crack will take one of these tubes. They're fantastic sounding power tubes for a headphone amp.
Yeah, well, our new kit is going to take a pair of them. It's going to be lower impedance and higher output than you typically would find with a headphone amplifier, but it is a power amp. So
Yep.
So the Toshibas are, of course, Japanese manufactured, and they're really a high quality tube. The 6080 is basically a modern 6AS7, which is the Coke bottle version. And these tubes were designed to push current. Can you tell? Look at the size of the plate structure, the reinforcement to support it, and the design is really unique among tubes. It's designed to really get hot. These things get so hot that I think you could probably destroy a battle cruiser if you just fired one, heated it up. You'd have a sort of a launching tube, heat it up, and then just fire. Can you tell I'm reading science fiction of late? Anyways, they get hot. When we're working on the new headphone amp, we've got to be really careful to let them cool down before we start handling them. But like a lot of Japanese-made tubes, not all, but a lot of Japanese-made tubes, they put a lot of attention to detail. And it's a cultural thing. They just do things, they manufactured things so well. And the very least you can expect from a Japanese-made tube generally is a good, tight testing tube that is just
basically right on spec.
Right on spec. They're generally long-lived tubes, and we really like them. If you've watched this channel for years, you know that we've put more and more focus on some of the better Japanese-made tubes. Now, just because a tube's made in Japan does not mean that it's a great tube. A lot of them, like so many tubes made in other places in the world, they sound mediocre. So we just listen. We bring them in and we listen to them. We select the best of the best to put in the store. And we do that with tubes made in Europe, tubes made in Canada, tubes made in the US.
But in general, we've been really impressed with the Japanese ones.
Yeah. And so these will be on sale this week. And so if you're interested in grabbing a pair that's discounted and continuing our program of trying to help people out in what is really trying times, you can double dip. So you can grab the sale price in the store, and you can use a Cheers code. And talking about Cheers codes, here's some Cheers codes for you. And there's a nice nice juicy one that's really easy to figure out. It's a hidden code, but lots of people get it. And we can reach most people with $20 flat rate shipping. And if your order is $150 or more after the discount, the shipping's on us, folks. Stay safe, everyone. This is Jim.
And Charles.
Signing off. Cheers, everyone.